You're now listening to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. You are in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and everything growth.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Funded Now What podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Andrew Startups. I'm super excited, as I am every episode, but uniquely this time because I have someone I actually know in person. First time ever. I got a friend to come on, Michael Laframboise. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. So this guy, every founder that I have on the show is cool, but this guy is actually creating lasers to shoot down drones. Can you tell us a little bit about your startup and where you guys are at?
Definitely. So we're Aurelius Systems. We are a edge deployed counter drone system company. So we make laser guns that shoot down drones.
Dude, so cool. And congratulations on raising over $2 million on your pre-seed round recently.
Yep.
So Aurelius Systems, super unique company. I know when I met you, you told me there's an application already for literally trying to solve and save countries, solve wars and save countries. But what brought you into this? What's your background? I know you have a super technical engineering background that's like a list that goes on for miles, but walk us through your background and what led you to starting this company.
Yeah, definitely, man. I spent way too long in school. So I went to undergrad for mechanical, master's in electrical. I went to an MBA and another MS, and then I dropped out of that because I was like the real MBA is starting a company. Did a software company. My co-founder and I sold that maybe 2 years ago, year and 3/4 of a year ago. Went to a PhD at Columbia in EECS, specializing in photonics. And then I've worked in laser systems for years at a company called Coherent, which is a fake laser company.
Wow.
Part of that work, I was doing directed energy work. And I always thought that like the Gauss cannon in Halo on the back of the Humvee was sick. Was looking for areas to contribute there. And I think really the story here is that probably the most salient thing on the battlefield that we're seeing, and everyone knows it's all over the headlines, is this era of drone warfare where you have to spend like $500,000 to $2 million on a missile to shoot down an FPV drone that costs $500. And so that cost asymmetricity is just untenable for the US and our allies. And I saw a place where my skills and what I could do and what I was interested in really intersected with what was necessary. And so we decided to make a go of it. You know, we're super early. We just raised like less than a month ago our pre-seed. So we're hiring our founding engineering team. And we need to build this thing. So the beginning of here, we have a super small demo of a very, very short shoot down.
It's still amazing.
Yeah.
Like you guys in the house, there's a little drone flying around and his laser shoots it down. It's on fire and it just falls from the sky in your apartment. So even that, being able to raise with that MVP, it's just really exciting. And to go back, you guys heard all of this long career that this guy's had. He's still in his 20s.
Barely.
So, barely.
I just turned 29.
Hanging on by a thread, but still, what an incredible career you've had. I didn't even know about the previous exit. That is something I definitely want to chat about a little bit more, how that impacted the fundraising round. But just congrats on getting all that done. I speak on stages and tell people to throw away their 20s traveling because you never get that back, and do the exact opposite of what I say and to try to save the world like Michael over here. So that's incredible what you've been able to accomplish. Let's get right into it with the fundraising that you were able to accomplish for this company with such an incredible but yet early stage demo. First question, do you feel like that previous exit made it really easy to raise funding for this company, or because it's so wildly different and a defense industry related product, was it harder to raise money? It's not really a sexy thing that people understand.
Yeah, I think that the story with that company, so it was a company called Oxygen.io with a zero X. I think everything is still up for it. Okay. And the story with that company was that we came together. There were maybe 5 people involved, and it was more like a lifestyle company. We didn't raise venture for it, and it was very small from beginning to end, like building it, like the revenue numbers that we generated and what it like everything that ended up coming out of it. Everything was very small. But what the company did was it turned in-game assets into NFTs into in-game assets, and try to facilitate a secondary marketplace for those assets. So Web3, we were doing it during one of the kind of the Web3 bubble, maybe a year and a half, maybe like 2 to 3 years ago. The sales cycle for NFTs totally died, and we went
Yeah.
through a very tough time in that company with my co-founders. One of the co-founders on this company was the CTO in that company. I think what really helped was that I had been through a really tough time in a startup and come out with a good relationship with my CTO, John Marmaduke, through that experience, and that was what really helped. But I think because it's not like I went through a Series A and sold like a company,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
it was very, very minor, very, very minor. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Still great experience though, I'm sure. And I'm sure it helps you when you're pitching to people, like you're not a fresh undergrad 23-year-old that with no corporate or business experience. You've been through
mm.
selling a company doing due diligence, things like that. That's really cool. Second question then, how many calls did it take, like with different VCs to raise this pre-seed round? Was it a lot, a little,
Mm.
excruciatingly difficult?
It was probably 120 to 130 different entities, but calls over 200
Yeah,
probably,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
between meetings and calls. And I think what it was is that at the beginning, my network, especially in venture, had not particularly been in the defense space. It was just in general San Francisco tech. And so talking to people where they're like, oh, my LPs don't invest in defense,
Yeah.
or I'm interested in you and the technology, and I think it'll probably win what you're going to do. But I don't know how I feel personally about defense, which I think is
Yeah.
fair. I
Yeah.
think it's like some people view it as like a vice, like gambling. Like some people
Hmm.
view defense investing like that, and so it attracts a certain field. I will say it was very interesting the amount of kind of generalist VCs that had just recently opened up to investing in defense. So
Hmm.
people that maybe a year ago would not have been interested in it would take my calls and I would
Yeah.
talk to them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And so many questions about that. I don't know if even the average listener even knows what you mean by defense. So can you even define that for us?
Yeah.
You're the first person from that industry that I've ever had on the show.
Yeah, for sure. I think that,
You mean like national
yeah,
defense?
like national defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Border control,
border
wars,
control, police,
yeah,
security, weapon systems,
yeah.
um,
Stuff that the average
software.
American
Yeah.
just is subconsciously grateful that it's there, but you don't actually have to know about your tax dollars going to it, but that's where they go, and a lot of it. Do you know what like the U.S. defense budget is? Any numbers around it?
800 billion,
800 billion.
750 billion, something like
Nice.
that.
To put
Yeah.
that in
I could be
perspective, the
wrong.
city of San
Yeah.
Francisco is $14 billion budget, which is still really huge for such a small city,
Yeah.
but it's,
Mm.
40, 50 times more than that. So that
Mm.
is a huge budget. And, I've been a part of companies that sell to government, and it is a painful experience. But when they buy a lot and they always
Mm.
pay. They might not pay on time, but they pay. And so I think that's a really great place to be in. As an investor, I think, if you do have incredible technology already, but it's not a few $1 million opportunity either. It's like when this company does work out, it's a massive game changing, like the first person that ever invented a gun type deal. So I think, from an investment perspective, I think from what I hear from a marketing perspective, it's one of your jobs is to create marketing to educate people that it's not a vice, that,
Yeah,
like the way forward is actually caring about defense as a whole, and,
definitely.
it's not an ESG thing, like where you're investing for the kindness of your heart. It obviously needs obvious, utilitarian money making
Yeah.
purpose. But
Yeah,
I think
I think on that point, there are a lot easier ways to make a lot of money in this world than I think starting a defense company. I think that the people that get into it, I did a crypto company, Web3 software. I could have just taken those learnings and gone it done like another one, right? And like
yeah, yeah,
maybe, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do something like that someday. But I think at some point you look and you're like, okay, like how much money is worth what the time that you're going to spend in your life, right? And to do whatever. So it's just super, super interesting to me. I've spent years in university studying photonics and optical physics because just from a technical point of view, it's very interesting to me. And I'm like, oh
mm,
shit, I can do a like laser gun company. Like we can do it and we can be effective and we can do something that matters. So,
and help
and
people.
Yeah. And so like yeah. And so if you like follow me on Twitter, I'll just tweet out. I'm like, thank God every day that I'm not working on a burrito delivery app company or
Yeah.
optimizing ads at like Amazon or something. So,
Yeah, and no shade to the people doing that, but one
yeah.
thing that I love about living here in San Francisco, we both live in San Francisco, is that there's a ton of people like you that know they can go and make a ton of money doing something that they might not love, but still choose to work on something just because they want to do it and they want to
Hmm.
make the world a better place and they want to be that guy that works on photonics and lasers just because he can. And it's full of people chasing their dreams like that, which is very different than
Hmm.
like LA chasing your dreams, which is like me dreams, you know.
Hmm.
And so that's why I came back here after many years of traveling the world, is because I want to work with cool people like that that are really trying to change the world and save the world. And when I met you, we were at a Ukrainian's house, and so you were talking about the immediate application of this technology. Can you talk a little bit of, it's off the beaten topic of fundraising, we'll get back to it, but just,
Yeah.
one thing that stuck in my mind while I was like, I have to get you on the show is you mentioned the statistics around the Russia-Ukraine war and how lopsided it is and how much this technology might actually be able to help Ukraine out.
Yeah, definitely. So we have done a lot of we've done a lot of customer discovery and talked to a lot of people out there. I think that the probably the simplest way to put it is basically you have right now in the front lines in Ukraine, you have for the most part you have the $400,000 U.S. missile, or you don't, and you some people are trained on shotguns, but that really works at very very close ranges, and it's maybe you have one drone that's loitering and isn't incoming, and then you can kind of take it down. I don't know if you've ever been skeet shooting, but I really like skeet shooting, and it's very
Hard.
hard to like
Yeah.
anything more than 10 or 20 meters away. It starts to get kind of difficult to hit at movement, unless you're like a pro. So what we want to do is we want to have a system that is not like tens of millions of dollars. Like you'll see a lot of directed energy systems that are kind of deployed out in the field right now, or are trying to be deployed. They're very expensive. They have a dedicated power supply. They have to be towed by a truck. They come in a shipping container.
Yeah.
They're fairly static without some amount of time of packing up and moving. Yeah.
So yeah, you can imagine. But I remember you mentioned, how many drones Russia's producing like per month. Can you give us
It's
that
like
statistic?
350,000 a month, I believe. That's what I've read. I You'd have to quote me. It is in the, I'm fairly certain
Whatever,
it's in the hundreds of
hundreds of
thousands. Yeah.
thousands of these
Yeah.
drones, and there's no way that Ukraine could ever get that many anti-drone missiles from the United States, like with all the funding that we're giving. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean, the U.S. can't, like,
produce them.
we 350,000 a month. So that's what, say $1 million a missile on average, or have like
Yeah,
into that. And if we had to shoot them all down, it would just be crazy.
yeah,
Even if
exactly.
we were in an engagement, if we were in a near peer adversary engagement, that would be an untenable economic
Yeah,
situation. So I think
yeah,
if you talk to military commanders, even in the US DoD, one of the most salient anxieties that they have is this drone warfare
yeah.
issue. What do we do about it? Yeah.
So, that's one definite reason why fundraising worked out for you, is because the total addressable potential problem is really huge. And it probably, another thing that I see founders raising money around is, are you the person for it? And with your photonics background and 5 degrees and already having
Yeah.
an exit and all this, whatever, sounds like you probably are the guy. But like, off the top of your head, what is the first tip that you have for someone listening to this podcast? They're just starting out their fundraising efforts. They're now looking up a hill at 120
Yeah.
relationships that they need to manage and 200 plus calls. What's a piece of advice that you give someone? That's something that you learned from this process that you didn't know before.
Yeah, when you're on like week two of like getting no's from people all day every day, and you're looking down another 2 weeks of like your calendar is just full of 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 invites, or like I basically just like wake up in the morning, like when you're getting no's in sales. I used to do sales, and the same thing applies generally. Like when you're just getting destroyed every day, and you wake up in the morning and you're just like achieve consciousness, and you're like, oh my God, I have to go continue to do this. Um, just get up and go to work. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I would journal. I remember one time I was like, it was like in the beginning of our fundraising, I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I would just like write down how I felt, the things that I need to do that day, and do it out. I guess it's like when you're feeling like that, it's really easy to quit. It's so cliche. It's so cliched, but it's
Okay.
cliched. It's cliched because it's repeated ad nauseum, and it's repeated ad nauseum because it's true,
It's
which is
true.
just it's just true.
Just
It's
keep
just like,
going.
yeah, exactly.
Just keep going.
Um,
No, that's good.
yeah,
That's good. While
maximize
you're
hours. Maximize
maximize
hours.
hours. Okay, go a
Yeah,
little deeper. What
yeah.
do you mean by that?
I love the like freaking Alex Hormozy talks about like before like up until you're 30 you should be doing like you should be doing like a 6-day work week, 12 hours a day,
Hmm.
like from 18 to 30 basically, and just like maximize your shots on goal, maximize your iteration points. I mean, before I was like, okay, we can do this, and I'm committing to this, I had done like a bunch of hackathons, like done a bunch of different projects, did customer interviews for 2 or 3 different ideas that I had had.
Hmm.
And so you just have to like do this iterative process, and it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily feel great, but you got to do
You
it.
guys, yeah, you got to know there's gold at the end of the tunnel and you just keep going. No, I love that. And, along with the journaling idea is really good too, because, after you do successfully raise the money and you'll feel this insane joy and you want to look back and also remember those lows when you're at the highs. And I think that's really good to connect them. But one thing that I hear from people that successfully raise is, you get those first 2 weeks that you're mentioning, you get beat up and you write down the feedback that you got, the negative feedback, and then you work on it and you get better and you iterate and you iterate and you
Mhm.
iterate. You don't just keep continuing saying the exact same thing. You have to be like, well, they kept hitting on this thing that it's a laser, which I haven't brought up. Like, I remember when I first met you, I immediately went to, if this product gets in the wrong hands, like what's going to happen? And I'm sure
Mhm.
that you got a lot of questions around that when so just using that as an example, you just get tighter and tighter. And I was just talking to a founder that only has done 15 calls and feeling really depressed. And I was like, I told them about the stat that the average person on this show says around 100. And so if that means you have 85 more times getting punched in the face, but if you keep changing and iterating and getting closer and closer and removing the issues that people have with it, whether that takes a week to fix that issue, a month, whatever, you keep coming back, then they have nothing negative they can say and you get the check. You know what I
Yep.
mean? If it works for them. And so I love that. What are you guys planning to do with this $2.1 million?
Yeah, we need to hire our founding team, and we need to get a laser gun that shoots down at a good distance, at least, something on the order of a kilometer, as
Nice.
soon as possible. So
Okay.
we're getting a warehouse space that we're moving into this month, and I'd say as like the CEO of the company, I feel like I can do one thing extremely well and just like really focus on that. At the beginning of the company, it was fundraising. Now it's hiring. Everything about our success over the next 12 to 18 months, I think, is going to be, what are the best people that I can get to be able to crank this out?
Nice.
So we have our job applications out. We've blasted that everywhere. We've received like 400 resumes, and we narrowed that down to less than 20 second rounds.
Nice.
So
And these are
sorry,
not like,
we 400 resumes, probably 50 to 60 first round calls, and then down to like less than 20, maybe
wow.
15 second
And
rounds. Yeah.
these are not like normal software engineering roles. These are people with laser experience.
One of them is a laser experience position, and that one is very difficult.
Yeah.
It's simultaneously difficult and non-difficult. So I'd say that, let's say you're a laser engineer and you want to do startups, as opposed to a software engineer. You probably have 1/100th of the opportunity, because your
Hmm.
skills are in a very niche, like
Exactly.
hardware optics
Exactly.
skill set. And so we've gotten a lot of like laser physics PhDs. We got like a professor from a main school that applied that was like, hey, I'd be
Nice.
interested in doing this.
Just because the
Um,
project's so cool. Yeah.
yeah, the project's cool. Hiring for a sexy company is so much easier than hiring for like a not sexy company. Though I think as a founder, the sexiest company is one that works, probably.
Absolutely.
Like if your company's working, that's
And
sexy.
and it's funny, it's
Yeah.
sexy to the right laser nerds, no offense, than
Yeah,
like
for
the
sure,
random
for
person on the
sure,
street
for sure.
was like,
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
But to the
The
PhD laser guy, this is the sexiest thing in the planet,
Totally,
So
totally. Yeah, so we've been super blessed that we got some really good candidates for these positions. And then maybe slightly more in the middle is like the hardware position, where we're hiring for a generalist hardware, like electromechanical engineer, just looking for a really, really high energy person that just loves building stuff. Like John, my CTO, said this. He's like, the person that we want for this is someone whose brain only releases dopamine when they are building hardware products. Like their brain is like low dopamine until they're building something, and then it
It's
only
the only
releases that way.
addiction they have. Good luck on that.
Exactly.
We'll see. Those people
But
have other
yeah,
dopamine things that they hide behind closed doors.
yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
But this hardware position, whereas like the software, where the laser engineer, it might be one in a hundred, like there's 1/100th the opportunity for a mechanical engineer, there might be 1/10 the opportunity for a software engineer to do a startup. And then we're hiring for a software like robotics controls engineer. For that position, I don't care if you know what a database is. I care if you do like controls work, right? So embedded system stuff.
Nice.
And that position we got the most applications for so far. But like I'd say that like the signal's noise is a little bit lower on that pool that we've received so far. And I think it's a function of there's so much opportunity for software people in the city to go to a startup. And so you got to fight hard for those positions.
You do.
Yeah.
These are all locally based people as well?
They need to be in person.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, no, I meant obviously to work on physical products like this. But I mean, you might be able to benefit by convincing someone to move here from somewhere else.
Oh, yes, that's what you mean. Yes, they are from all over the country.
Yeah, like they need to live here for the job, but I think this is a wildly competitive place in tech. And then I see people get hired from Columbus, Ohio, where I'm originally from. I know you're a Midwest dude originally too, right? I think we connected on that. We won't say where you're from though, but
what are you talking about?
Aren't you from Michigan or something?
My co-founder and I are from Michigan.
Fuck you! No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I don't care. I'm not in football in any way. I was just raised in it. But no, there's way less cool opportunities there, and so you're able to, get really exciting talent and convince them to move to a better life out here. No offense to anybody listening in Ohio, but they wouldn't listen to this podcast anyway. They're too intellectual. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so nice. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your marketing because I won't rip you apart on the branding colors.
You don't like the Hotline Miami.
I mean, I love it if you were selling like vape pens or something. You know what I mean? But no, I think, when you're dealing with such a unique customer base, you don't really need to do any branding related things. You're not looking for people to find you and buy your product through social media. So a lot of marketing rules don't necessarily apply because at the end of the day, I very, very rarely ever say this. If the product really works, they're going to find you. But you do need to do groundwork marketing. And so what that really means to me is probably making you the expert, the global expert on the future of drone protection and drone defense and lasers for good. And have you thought about anything around, expanding your thought leadership in this space as the CEO of this new company?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be very, very valuable on like at least LinkedIn to really be the person that's doing directed energy stuff.
Directed energy.
Certainly.
Okay, nice.
Directed energy is the PC term for laser and microwave weapons.
I mean, I dated a yoga teacher. She used directed energy as a very different thing.
I see.
But no, I love that. Okay, well, let's focus on that for the next 10 or so minutes. Like, how can Michael Laframboise become the expert on directed energy? So it's a PR exercise. Okay, so I and GrowthExpertz, our company, we consider PR, especially when we're promoting the founder of the company, as like 4 or 5 different things. So speaking at conferences. So you want someone on your team or an intern or a consultant or something to build a list of every potential conference you could ever speak at. So it's not just the hyper targeted directed energy conferences, but defense conferences, deep tech conferences, like, anything where your speech will be really unique. We want, usually we get the lowest hanging fruit first. So TechCrunch Disrupt or something that's happening in San Francisco that you don't need to spend any money, you can just walk to. Even if it's a small thing, we get those out of the way. So we have recordings of the founder speaking. We have topics that they speak about well. We put that into a nice little package, and then we start shipping that out to all the other conferences, even a year in advance. Those conferences, are good because your confidence gets up, your ability to speak on stage, therefore helps the next funding round. But then when you're doing investing or pitching or fundraising the next time, they Google that, they see these YouTube videos. Wow, this guy's spoken all over the world. It increases the confidence that people have in your abilities. And so I think that's really good. So that's one part. The second part is obviously the niche media. So I don't know the defense space, but if there are, academic journals, Defense Weekly magazine, whatever, all of those places, we want to start getting you interviews in those places even before the product is created. And just literally creating a press release around the story about how Russia's printing 300,000 drones a month and these missiles cost 400,000, like that's a story. That is a wild discrepancy there. And you're building to solve this huge problem. And then the evening where I met you, I mean, I saw the emotion on Kirill's face. This is a serious
Yeah,
issue.
Ukrainians feel very, very strongly about this for sure.
Yeah, and so there's probably some media opportunities to talk, any if I was your publicist, any reporter, even on a nationwide scale, on NBC or whatever, talking in the morning about updates on the Ukraine war, like having you come in and talk about this drone issue, and even if it's not necessarily just talking about the product that you're building, but talking about this problem and the research that's out there about the drones and how much the missiles cost and things like that. You have to decide what you're comfortable to talk about and what you're legally allowed to say, and you figure that out before you go and do this campaign. But that's piece number two, and that's also good. Again, you're not really selling on your website, but the logos as seen in really adds a lot of credibility to a company while still building in stealth somewhat. So the third piece is publishing your own content. So it doesn't have to be a 200-page book like mine, which took me a long time to write, but writing some kind of book about, you have such an incredible background and knowledge that, like you can probably forecast where the industry is going, and what's going to happen. And, we didn't really touch on it much, but when I met you, I was joking about the negative applications after I saw the video of your demo, I was like, oh man, I can just see passenger planes being shot down or horrible, sad thing, so alleviating those fears by writing something maybe about the future of directed energy, just that, like I always like to, when we're doing thought leadership for founders, start by writing like a 20-page white paper about the future of blank. So I have a client in the telecom space, future of, he's in service assurance. It's a platform that helps like Verizon not crash, a software platform. And so the future of service assurance for network operators, you put out a super targeted white paper, you get a lot of niche media attention for that. So that could be a book or a white paper, but you have the ability to do that with, a weekend in ChatGPT. You can bust out something that is able to be referenced and quoted by the media, and that will really help expand your thought leadership. When you're a business that wants customers to find you, content can also be like writing blog articles. Going back to that telecom client, we write with the founding team, we write a lot of really technical blog posts that help increase the confidence. If you're selling to super technical people, they want to really understand the deep technical aspects to the product. And so writing blog articles like that can, one, be referenced anytime someone has a similar FAQ. You can, hey, we wrote an article about the photonics of this and that thing. Anything I say is going to sound ridiculous there, so I won't go too deep. And the last part of it is like, not relevant here, like influencer, like partnering with influencers and doing content there. And I think we want to make you that influencer, but you'll obviously hear this podcast again, but if you use that as a framework, bringing an intern on when you get that warehouse, really cool opportunity for them. And all the normal aspects of marketing don't matter. Like just focus on getting me these speaking gigs, writing this white paper, publishing articles and speaking to reporters who talk about defense. And that should only end up encompassing an hour or two of your week. But the cumulative of that over the next year is, wow, there's a plethora of interviews, articles, speaking gigs, and then that next funding round just becomes easy because you're the guy at that point, I think.
I think it definitely helps. I've gotten that advice from a few people, especially in the space. Our customers or our end users are people who this will really affect. Most of them are on LinkedIn. And so we know that that's kind of the vector by which you do a lot of this information distribution or signaling or just trying to get the word out.
Yeah.
Also a lot of the engineers that we're trying to hire are there. So that's
the more noise
double
you make,
whammy,
the more people want to believe in the vision, and I got to work for that visionary CEO. You can't be a secret anymore, dude. You said your customers are on LinkedIn. I would imagine it's like purchasers and government. Like, who are the customers?
Yeah, it's interesting. Selling to the DoD is very difficult. I can't give you like an extreme amount of information on it because we
I
are.
don't want to get killed.
We're still working on this, but I think basically you have your end users for like a weapons product. You have your end users that are like soldiers, so end users that will be actually using your product. And then you have two different groups of people within the DoD. One is allocating the funding to be spent on systems, and then the other is actually making the end purchase decision. And so you actually have three different people that you need to be kind of plugged into to win in this space. And so the sales cycle, like there's B2C, and then there's B2B, then there's like B2G. In terms of length and difficulty. But I think what we're seeing with our company is like the rule, like not the rules, but like people are we're getting outreach from people in those positions that are like, hey, when is this going to be like ready? Like we need it now. Like, or like people in Ukraine like need to be able to use these systems as soon as possible. And so we're continuing. We have a great team. Like our VCs have provided us with so much support to be able to move forward here. So it's been good. And so it's about like we have kind of a plan for execution for the funding that we need, which we've already executed on, for hiring, which we're doing right now, and then for building, which is 95% of what I care about. Is we need to get these units out. We need to produce this product.
Makes sense. Well, if I can just say, while you're building the product, build that marketing thought leadership. At the same time, it's a really long, slow burn, and you'll be really happy that you started it sooner rather than later. But that I'll let you go in a second. But those three targets really make sense. But really, one of them is all you really care about. Like the person making the budgeting, allocating decisions, you're not going to sway that person's decision, I don't think, unless they attend a conference and see you speak. And that's why I really honed in on that being important. Then possibly like, we need this. But it's really the person making the final purchasing decision. But down the line, as you're developing a product, of course, you think about the end user, because if it doesn't work, then that's going to get back to that purchasing decision. And then they're going to stop making those purchases. So it's good to have a high level view thinking of all those, but I don't think you can really sway the initial budget allocator, right? Like there's nothing you can really do for that. You just have to create an awesome product.
The budget allocator, if it's like a congressional like appropriation, there's like a budget that's made like years in advance,
exactly,
like a couple of years in advance. So you're talking about swaying people, but on a very very long time horizon. So we have to work within the confines of the budget. Like this year, we have to work within the confines of the budgeting that exists this year, and then maybe you can do something in a future year.
Nice, dude. Such an interesting thing. I wish you all the best, saving hundreds of thousands of innocent people's lives. Anything that I or GrowthExpertz can ever do. If you need advice on the color of your logo, don't ask me about that. But
no, we will be relogoing soon, I'm sure.
Hey, if you were able to raise $2 million with a Miami Vice looking logo,
we had no logo at the time.
Nice.
We took some creative liberty.
Even harder. No, I love it, man. You're a mission-driven guy. You have an incredible background. You're definitely the founder for this. Congratulations, and I look forward to following your success, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. If you really liked it, make sure to share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks. We'll see you in the next episode.